I came from a background, my parents, I wouldn't say it was a very poor family, so I had not got that exposure. So working in this environment really showed me the reality of the world. I came to see that actually majority of Ugandans were living in poverty, were vulnerable and needed support. So for me, it was fulfilling to work in this organization, and that is how I started my career in Yukovac.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you're joining the CEO bench, that right there is getting you into what we call knowing somebody personally, and of course getting into their life. That is Frances is the executive director of Yukovac, and she's on the CEO bench. If you're joining us from anywhere in the world, we're live on Twitter, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, and House of Time /Facebook. Please tell your neighbor and tap your cousins, and this story is going to be a very interesting one. As well as on Twitter, wherever you are, tweet, show, share, retweet, and make sure everybody gets to know what is happening. Frances, I want to just take you straight to this. And in today's changing world, it's rapidly changing world, learning to lead and design our organization to read the turbulence of time creatively is critical to our ability to make positive impact. And this television program is about those that are at the top of doing that, or those that are rising up to the top of doing that, and the focus is on transformational change and the implications for the individuals who are in that space as leaders, or in their organizations, or in the culture of the organization, or in our society, depending on what structure that we're in. Your story that you have given in the intro of this interview is very important, but we want to know something more specifically, lining to your organization, which is civil society today. Give us a sneak peek of the life of a woman in that space.
Oh, that's a very good question. The life of a woman in this space is just the same as the life of a woman in any other space. It's not an easy space, especially when it comes to leadership, and when it comes to influencing decisions and also influencing processes in any other institution. So it is not an easy space for a woman. It is a space where a woman has to do something extra or do something more to be able to prove that they are able to do what they should be doing. So I would say that it's the same. It's very competitive. Many times we see that in many civil society organizations, still we find them to be male-headed, and we're having many women, many girls taking up leadership roles in civil society organizations, but it's not an easy task. It's where we have to really prove ourselves that we can lead these organizations to greater heights. And there's a lot that is involved in the civil society organizations. There's leadership in itself, there's management of processes, there's management of the human resource, there's fundraising, there's research. It's a lot that needs to be done, and many times there is a feeling that is too much for a woman, because she has other traditional roles that she needs to do as at home. So many times as people are looking for leaders in civil society organizations, the priority is usually given to men, because of our society that feels that men have the time, men have the capacity, men have the ability to lead, to take this organization to greater heights. And women, there will be a problem. They will have to go to maternity leave. They have issues. They are too emotional. They have not done the courses that are good enough for leaders. They don't have time to go for extra learning, or to go for work outside Kampala, because they have to tend to their children. So there's too much that society has tied around a woman. And it's true, we have these traditional roles that we have to do, but does not in any way mean that women cannot lead in these spaces. So it is really changing with time. As more women get into leadership positions, it's changing, and there is more appreciation that is coming towards women, because women have demonstrated, many women leaders in civil society organizations, like in any other institutions, have demonstrated that they are able to excel, to move these organizations to greater heights. So I think it's changing with time, but it's still very difficult for women to take on leadership positions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Francis, I like the journey, and I would want to ask you one more question just before we go into a break.
Yeah.
The leadership journey and the little information about the organization you currently lead. You said you ended up there.
Yes.
Starting into the process of internship, and then luckily your mother ended up taking you there, and now you are in that space.
Yeah.
We want to know more about this organization. What are the issues that you are working on as you go back at the moment, having started there as a child?
Okay.
I would call you as a child.
Yes, I was a child. I was a child. At that time, I was probably barely 20, maybe 19.
Yes.
A grown-up child, I should say. So the reason why I say my mother took me there, my mother was one of the founder members of this organization.
Yeah.
And she had been in politics before, and then later changed course and decided that she wanted to do something for women and children, because that's her passion. So she started this organization. And I admired her for a long time. When I was little, when I was young, my mother used to do a lot of work around mobilizing women to participate in governance processes. And we tagged along as children at home when she went for trainings in communities. And I admired the way she spoke to people, the way she impacted lives. So when she started this civil society organization, this NGO, I asked her, can I come and work with you? Can I support you in this process? And she took me in, but didn't take me in. She was very strict, because she gave me a lecture at the beginning and said, okay, I'm taking you in, but you're not any special. You're going to come in as an intern. You're going to make tea for the staff. You're going to to type. In those days, they would type. They would handwrite, and then they give you to type so that you can learn. And you're going to it will depend on you on whether you will get a job or not, because I don't hire. I have a board that hires and fires. Yeah. So I said, okay, I'll take it on. And many times people think that because this was an organization that was started by mother, that it was easy for me. Yeah. It was actually more difficult for me, because I had to prove myself beyond. I had to prove to her. I also had to prove to the board that I can be, I can work here. I am not taking advantage of this. I can do my best. I can contribute to this process. So so I got into this organization, and one thing that I did is that I worked hard. I worked hard at that time with the roles that I was given. I did them to the best that I could do. If it was typing something or going to support staff in the field, I did my best. I did not at any one time feel like, oh, I am someone's daughter, I am special. My mother is she's the founder member here. Yes. No, I did not have that at all. I worked hard, I proved myself. And when there was an opening for program officer, I put in my application. And I competed with many other people, and I was taken on as a program officer in the organization. And still, as a program officer, I worked hard. I delivered. Excellence is always something that I strive for. Yeah. So I worked hard, I delivered, I proved myself. I moved the organization to the level where I felt it should be at that level as a program officer. Yeah. And I have moved in this organization from one level to another. I started off as an intern. I became a project officer. I became a program officer, and now I am the CEO. So it has been growth within the organization that has not been handed to me, but I have worked hard for it. Yeah. I have had to prove myself, and and I think really what I can say around that is that many times when girls or people are given opportunities in the organization, we take things for granted. and don't put in a lot of effort to make sure that we prove ourselves and grow our careers within that organization, or you know, move the organization from one level to another. And for me, that's what I did differently, and that is how I've been able to reach where I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was not like come here, hand it over a silver plate, and receive it, go with it.
No, it's been really hard work. Yocoback is actually governed by a board. So even if we had we had other CEOs, they saw the work that I was doing in this organization. I was a young girl, but I was working hard. I was striving to learn, went back to school, did my master's degree. I got a master's degree in human rights, came back and tried as much as possible to apply what I had learned. And I think that demonstration of hard work and dedication has really been something that has moved me from one level to another, to a level where I am now a leader in this organization, where I started as an intern.
Wow.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, Frances, why did you choose your mother's path, not your father's path of being a politician? Why?
Well,
why not the politician in your father?
Yes, I know. I've had that question a number of times, and actually some people have always thought that probably I should have taken the political side. But for me, the passion that I have to, like I said in the beginning, the passion that I have to serve communities, underprivileged communities, marginalized sections of the community, for me that is closer to my heart. And I think politics is not a bad thing to do. My father did it well. Many politicians are doing it well, but it's not yet my time. Probably, I should say that. But what I'm doing right now is very satisfying. I am supporting women and girls because, as you know, our society looks down upon women and girls because it's a patriarchal society. So for me, I use my experience to inspire girls, to inspire women to be better, to improve in their homes, to improve in their places of work, and to contribute meaningfully to the development of our country. And I feel for me that is also politics in itself. If we can support women to be able to participate in leadership positions in politics, that is politics itself.
Wow, you've heard it from Frances right there. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, the CEO bench will continue the discussion with Frances. And of course, we'll be asking Frances more on the leadership, change management, and transformation, which is what the show really stands for. Stay right there. We'll be right back after the break.
For me, leadership is a privilege of moving people towards a destiny. And for me, it would be towards God's agenda. That's the best, moving people to God's agenda. God has an agenda for everybody. And I know some people will say, oh, it's too much of God. But God has a plan for this world. And so whether you're in business, you're a medical personnel, if somebody came to you, a good medical leader says, I want you not only to be healed, but to be healthy. That's the kind of mindset that I see. And it's about self. So if you ask me, am I a leader? By the grace of God, I am a leader and I am growing as a leader. And I thank God for that privilege of being a leader. And who is a leader to me? It's very simple. Someone that has a vision, but is also someone that is there serving people. For me, that's a leader. Vision is where you want to take things. Serving is the recognition that if the things do not matter to people, drop them.
Wow.
Drop them. Because at the end of the day, whatever we do must make a difference in people's lives. Anybody who has had huge impact in history, in leadership, the impact is not measured by just the things they did, but what those things did for people's lives. Did they make a difference? So it's useless for you to make so much money and the money does not add value to people's lives.
Wow.
So for me, yes, you have to have a vision, and at the end of the day, you are serving people. Again, it doesn't change. Leadership is leadership, whether it is at what we would call a lower level or a top level. Leadership is leadership. It's about influence. It's that influence that comes from you have a vision and you are serving people. So what changes is the level of responsibility, but the other one that people don't like is the level of accountability. You see, Jesus said, to whom much is given, much will be required. So the only differences there is the level of responsibility. When you're at the national level, you are now responsible for an entire nation. When you are a CEO, now you're no longer just looking at the department, you are looking at the entire entity. The responsibility has changed, the accountability even goes higher. Hi, this is Julius Wotlonyo, pastor at Watero Church. Thank you so much for tuning into House of Talent Television. It's a great, innovative way of doing TV, and particularly for being a part of the CEO bench, talking about leadership. You know what, friends? Leadership can be tough. Leadership can be lonely, and the dynamics of leadership keep changing. I want to encourage you, watch the CEO bench so that you can get to hear real practical tips on leadership from people who are actually practicing leadership. Once again, thank you for being a part of the CEO bench right here on House of Talent Television.
Back from that break. My name is Eddie Okila, and of course this is the CEO bench. Francis Birungi Odong is the executive director of WOCOBAC. I will not attempt to pronounce it or to mention it fully before I get completely lost and then I get sued for messing up with the name. But Francis, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And to all of you out there, please share this far and wide. Make sure that this story coming from a woman, if you're a woman, share it. We got the third female on the show this week, and she's giving us the story of how she's made it to the top of being the executive director of WOCOBAC. Francis, we went to a break when you were telling us the leadership development. Let me start by asking you a question on this second one of the show. What is your understanding of leadership?
Okay, my understanding of leadership is really a gift from God to guide others and to support others to be able to do what they do even better. For me, that is leadership for me. To use a gift that you have, to be able to support others, to guide others, and to direct others in a way that can make them perform better or even contribute better. Yeah, for me, that's leadership for me.
Okay, so what is self-leadership to you?
Self-leadership is, to me, leadership where myself, as a leader, for example, I am able to guide myself, I could use the same words, to guide myself, to direct myself in a way that I can be exemplary to the others. In a way that I can be an example for others, or in a way that I can develop as a person in a way that others can be able to benefit from my growth. So that is self-leadership for me, having that focus on yourself to grow yourself into someone that can be an example to others, someone that can direct others, someone that can, you know, support others, or someone that can be able to guide, you know, others to a particular direction, you know, in order to achieve something that is for a common good.
Okay.
So for me, that is self-leadership.
Wow. That said, Francis, about 30 years ago, Hucubak was started.
13
years?
30.
30 years.
Yes, yes.
I have been reading
Okay.
about Hucubak, and about 30 years ago, it is said that Hucubak started.
Yeah.
But of course, we would argue that this could be the oldest NGO or organization in the country,
Yes.
in that regard, in
Yes.
its category.
Yes.
And we want to know, fairly a young person leading it now, called Francis Birungi Odong, as an executive director. How does it feel steering this kind of an organization with that kind of weight?
Yes, it actually feels great. It feels great, and also it's a challenge at the same time, because I feel that as a leader of an organization that is one of the oldest organizations in the country, I have a burden on me to ensure that this organization does not collapse in my hands, because that will be bad for our generation as leaders.
Yes.
So I feel that
Yeah.
it is something that is very exciting. It is empowering. It is something that is really empowering for me, especially as a woman, to be in the steering wheel for this organization. But at the same time, I feel that I have something to prove. I have something to prove in the way that I have to show that this young generation can lead. It can lead differently, and it can, you know, move this organization to greater heights.
Okay.
So that is how it feels for me being in this position.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that as a young leader of this organization, I am supposed to look at the good things that have happened by the older generation, that have been able to move this organization to where it is.
And build on it.
And build on that.
Yeah.
Yes, because if I don't look at the history of the organization and how the founder members and the other leaders that have been in the organization have been able to bring it to this level for 30 years. You know, Eddie, that civil society organizations are very fluid. Many times they fail to go beyond even 5 years.
Yeah.
So there is something about them that they had that I feel I need to tap into, so as to be able to move this organization forward, so that I can also hand it over to the younger people to move it over. So I feel that I need to do more. I need to do my research to find out what it is that they have done, but also what can I do with the environment that I'm in now, in my time. What is it that I can do for this organization to make sure that it is stronger than it was before, but it is also a healthy organization to be handed over to the next generation.
Wow.
Yes.
So feeling, Francis, is a thought. Feeling is something that goes in the brain of a human being that is processed. But there's what we call responding to a specific stimuli, which is action, signal sent.
Yeah.
Do you think you are doing it right now?
Yeah, good question. I think I am doing that. I am doing that because I've got a good note from the, you know, the founders of the organization, but also people that have been leading before. And I feel that I'm doing well in terms of action, in the sense that Hucubak has really grown from who it was to who it is now. Just to take you back, as an organization, we started with one program area, which was basically working with orphans and vulnerable children and supporting them in different ways. But from, you know, probably 1 or 2 years back, the organization has taken on other program areas. We're now operating with 4 program areas in sexual and reproductive health and gender-based violence, issues to do with climate change, and women's land and property rights. So for me, the fact that we are able to do more than what the organization, you know, originally thought it could do is amazing. but also it shows that we are able to respond to the needs of the time. And I feel that a leader, a good leader, is one that is able to transform the organization to be responsive to the needs of the current times. And that is what I and my team are doing to ensure that we are responding, we are relevant to the current situation. By that time, by the time UCOBAC was formed, it was orphans and vulnerable children. Today it is beyond that. It's climate change issues, it's women's land rights issues, it's issues to do with sexual and reproductive health issues, gender-based violence. So how do you make sure that the organization is able to be responsive to the current needs, but also to be relevant in the current times? And I think a leader, if I was a leader that came in at this time and I still had one program area of orphans and vulnerable children, that's where everyone would have question marks and say, okay, something is not right. So I think that is action in itself, that the organization is having more action areas. I am able to create this change in the organization without really disrupting the mandate of the organization, but also supporting my team to be able to, to appreciate that this is the direction that we need to move into right now, and also for them to be able to contribute, to support them, my team, to be able to contribute in these different areas by building their capacity, by giving them spaces to be able to learn and grow, so that they can then be able to contribute in these different areas. So for me, I think action is there.
All right. So if you are a viewer out there, and of course looking into the CEO bench, when I say looking into, it means you are hearing what Francis is saying and what Eddie is saying and thinking. That's what we call looking into it. But watching on television is what you are doing right now. So we want you to watch and also think. And Francis, this program combines intellectual rigor with personal challenge, collaborations with creative expression. Right now, we want to know from you. UCOBAC recently changed its leadership from the board level.
Yes.
And also, just like any other organization or any other sector, human resource turnaround or turnover in NGO world is a common currency, as my friend Giwanto Chom keeps saying. And how are you managing the change in this organization? We are now on the change management process of the CEO bench. Okay.
So change is good. I should start from that point. Change is good, but at the same time, change is very hard. And many times we find that there's a lot of resistance to change. But I think the best way to manage change is to accept that it's a good thing. It is hard, it is difficult, it is challenging, but it is a good thing. And as a leader, once you have that change in mindset, that change is good and you're open to change, then it helps. So as an organization and as a leader in this organization, I try to make sure that I am open to change. And this is change in different ways. Change in leadership, change in staffing, change in processes, because change is good, but also change is an indication of growth for the organization. So how we manage change is that first and foremost, we try as much as possible to prepare the organization for change. So you have mentioned that we have had a new board that has come in. This is not something that happened out of the blue. There has been preparation for this change. The board members themselves have been prepared. Were prepared that this is going to happen, and they were supported to understand why it is important for this to happen. And these are board members that had been board members for 10 years. And of course, the way they do things is very different from the way things are being done today. And of course, there was some kind of resistance, some kind of not understanding
because
really
in
why
Uganda, change in Africa, change is a problem. Change is not good for us. We don't know how to embrace it yet.
It is, but we appreciate that it's very difficult to accept change, but it is a good thing. And the board members, the older board members, were supported to understand why it is important to have this change. And they have handed over very happily to a new board. And the new board also has come in, but we have prepared them through the orientation process to be open to change, because as an organization we keep on changing.
So you're preparing them before their time?
Before their time. They are now
so this is now the new generation kind of thinking that, step in there with a plan,
Yes.
knowing that tomorrow you will be asked to
Exactly, exactly. So we do
Yes,
prepare
yeah.
our leaders, our
Yeah.
governance for change,
Yeah.
and not only in terms of the leaders themselves changing, but also the the systems, the programs that we are doing,
Yes.
the staffing.
Yes,
There is
yes.
a lot of change that happens
Yeah.
because of the changes that are happening in our environment. It's not a static environment.
Yes.
So that is how change is happening. The organization is open to change. As a leader, I am open to change. A number of times I get staff that have to move on. And for me, I come from a background where I appreciate the fact that that is good change. For me, it shows me if one of my staff comes to me and says, I am moving on to another
Next.
organization,
Yeah.
it's a better opportunity. For me, I celebrate that because I feel like I have contributed something to the growth of this staff, and this staff is building a career, is moving on, and is creating space for newer generation or younger people to come in. So I usually celebrate that. I support them to transit and then bring in new people to the organization, support them to, to be able to also make their own contribution in that space.
Yeah.
So there's change that happens in the organization in terms of staff, in terms of programs, but as a leader, we try as much as possible to be open to it, to be able to support the systems, but also the personnel to be open to it, but also to appreciate it, despite the fact that it is hard.
Okay.
So that is our approach that we take.
Okay. And to our viewers, this is change management process in the CEO bench. And of course, when we say the CEO bench has that, we put leaders, CEOs on the CEO bench to task to explain some of the things. And the CEO bench brings out people who are in position of leadership and are actually practicing leadership by doing what they are supposed to do. And today on the show we have Francis, depending on where you come from. Of course, the executive director of Huckelbach, who is telling us more about how she's actually managing change. Now, viewers engage with integrative mind maps of organizational and leadership development on this program. And that is the focus for us here, as well as instantly applicable practices for becoming more effective as a leader, but as well as becoming dynamic as an individual, as well as collective. Francis, on that note, the NGO sector in Uganda is well known for many things, good and bad. In some circles, we believe that they do good things, but quite a number of times we try to measure the impact of what they are doing and we don't see. How is it that, or rather, how are you doing it at Huckelbach? 30 years down the road, can you measure your impact? Can we see it? And we're looking at measuring impact by measurable metrics. We're talking about, looking at the quantifiable, justifiable, measurable metrics of an organization. And so we want to put you on task as a CEO who has come in, or as an executive director who is there. How are you managing this? Can we see, can you take us through some of this that we can see today? Of course, reading from out there, I see that Huckelbach is known. You can't even mention the full names and it's known by that full name. It's known by the short name of it.
Huckelbach, yes.
So how are you doing it?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. And I think monitoring change and impact is very critical for any organization, because many times we do a lot as civil society organizations, but if we don't track what we are doing, we end up doing nothing. And that's why you say that sometimes organizations are either doing something good or sometimes doing something bad. In many cases, they are doing good, but are not able to demonstrate, or they're not able to track that, they are doing good in these areas. And I think that's a gap that many civil society organizations have. I think the issue of monitoring impact and being able to demonstrate impact really comes from the organization being very clear from the onset on what its objectives are. that is the starting point. You need to be clear about what it is that you want to see as change. And what is change to you as an organization? What is it that you would celebrate as change, for example? So I think once you're very clear on that, you have a very clear vision, you have a very clear mission, very clear and smart objectives for the organization, it becomes easier for you to be able to monitor change. And that is one thing that I don't know if many organizations are doing, but the ones that I've interacted with are investing a lot to making sure that they have smart objectives. Beyond smart objectives, an organization... Yes, I know. Yes. Beyond that, I think as an organization, we need to have systems.
Yeah.
Systems are very important. If you don't have systems and you're doing everything the way you want, then you will not be able to know if you're making a contribution or not in society. So systems are very important in the organization, but one of the major systems in terms of measuring impact is this, the issue of monitoring and evaluation systems. So there has to be a policy for the organization that responds or that shows that this organization is able to meet its objectives, but is also able to meet the objectives of the country and the world at large. So you have to see that, that link, because we don't work in isolation as civil society organization. We complement efforts of government. So we have to make sure that our objectives that we do are in line or contribute or complement on what the national development plans are, for example. But also we need to look at the sustainable development goals. What are the goals that we would look at to say that there is development in the world, So it's very clear to have a policy in place, a monitoring and evaluation policy that will show you that your interventions or your programs are first and foremost responding to your organizational objectives, but are also responding to the national priorities and are also contributing to the sustainable development goals. So a policy is very clear. It will show you what systems, what you need to have in place. For example, you need to have monitoring tools for each program. You need to have personnel in the monitoring and evaluation to be able to collect data that you can then analyze and see whether you're contributing to this. You have to have a framework that really shows the different programs that you're doing, the interventions that are under each program area, and how you're going to collect data that will inform you that you're making change or not. So that is a very valid question, very good, and I think as leaders, it is something that we need to really focus on, so that then we don't waste resources.
Yes.
The resources are directed towards our goals and vision.
Francis, what are your take on these issues, and how are you as an ED basically dealing with some of these issues in your organization? The issues that I'm talking about are issues of transformation and change, learning the organization and how they do things, and of course the level of leadership development in that organization. I know you've mentioned some of them. We're talking about the practical practices for transformational leadership change. You've talked about many changes. You've mentioned the issue of accountability. We have seen leaders being arrested in some of these organizations because they're not doing it well. We've followed your story very well, and on the CEO bench, somebody has to nominate you, and we often have to have 3 nominations for you to come on the bench. You surpassed the 3 nominations, and you are on the bench today. What is that one thing that when you look back you think was worth somebody nominating you to come here?
Okay, I think...
Given the levels I'm talking about, transformational, transformation and change, leadership and organization, levels of leadership development, practices for transformational leadership.
I would say that my nomination to be here could be mainly because of my style of leadership. And I think my style of leadership is unique in the sense that I don't believe that leadership means being feared or being I know all, I do all, but it is empowering others to be able to walk a journey with you. And that is how I lead. My team, I currently have a team of over 35 staff in the organization. And I try as much as possible to make them comfortable in this organization. You know, the fact is that many of the people that we work with spend most of the time of their day in these organizations doing the best that they can do. So we need to show them as leaders that we value the time, we value their contribution, and therefore support them to grow in this process. Yeah. So what I think is very unique in my style of leadership is that I try as much as possible to make it a family kind of organization where I am not, as leaders, as a team of leaders, we are not mechanic, but we are human beings. We try to listen to what our members are going through, support them through their journeys, but also I have this feeling that everyone can contribute something. So I am a kind of leader who actually does not believe in interviews. Unfortunately, I don't believe in interviews. I have this feeling that everyone is able to do something if they are supported and if they are given a platform to grow, and if they are given the resources, the ability, if they are treated in the right way, they are able to contribute something, So I try as much as possible. Many times in our organization, we bring young girls straight from university who have not even had any, training before. We don't normally do interviews. Those are really rare cases. So we bring these volunteers in, and we support them to grow into the organization. We tap into their abilities, but also build, support them through trainings, through exposing and providing platforms for them to go and make presentations, for them to go to and interact, so that they can then be able to grow and make their contribution the best way that they can. Yeah. So I feel that transformation comes like that, by providing space for growth, not only for you as a leader, but also for the people that are in your team. Yeah. Because if Frances as a leader, I am doing everything. I am the one writing proposals, I'm the one meeting donors, I am the one coming to speak to Eddie, I will break down. Yeah. But I need to build a team that is able to do that, so that when I'm doing something else, there is someone else that is doing something else, and they are growing in the process, and therefore I am able to also take care of myself as a leader. So if I don't do that, then I get overwhelmed with a lot of work, with a lot of stress and so forth. So for me, I think that is a very powerful way of leading, but also a powerful way of transforming the organization by creating new ideas, creating new blood into space for new blood to come in, and supporting them to grow in different ways. Like myself, I started as an intern, I told you. I have grown to be a CEO. When I see these young girls come into the organization, I tell them my story. And I tell them, you're now an intern, you're doing the typing, you're running around providing paper and pen to the participants, but if you work hard, you will be in my place. And I see them really working hard, putting the best that they can be, consulting, seeking knowledge. I always encourage them to go back to school, provide the opportunity for them to do that. And in such a way, I see growth, and I celebrate this growth in the organization with the people that come in. Of course, when they come, they go, and then the new ones come. And I allow that to happen, because for me, that is growth for the organization.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Frances, if I walk right now to the community, I will be able to find and feel the impact of your work. That's what you're saying?
Yes, most definitely.
So the CEO Bench is going to take a break, and when we come back, we will put Frances onto the last part of the show to task to explain how transformation is happening in society, where Ukobak is actually doing some work as a CEO. For her, it's very special because she's an executive director on the CEO Bench, mainly to talk about herself as a person, but also what the organization is doing and the change that we are having coming through to the society as a result of some of the programs that she's talking about. Stay right there. The CEO Bench is going for a break. Make yourself a cup of coffee while we also take a coffee break. But most importantly, share this interview far and wide. You never know who you're actually going to be changing their lives.
private sector is not yet fully utilized, because not everybody can be employed by government. And we are looking at a future whereby more people are employed in the private sector than in government. So I think if we all work hard, if we all work together and invest in the right areas, there's been a lot of talk about value addition in the agriculture sector, in the mineral sector. If there is enough investment in those areas, I think it can create enough jobs for our children and grandchildren.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to take you to question number 4, Andrew, which is, let's talk about your journey at City Hold and the foray into the Executive Director's office, which is as Andrew Chitaka,
Very
and
interesting.
as well as the Director Engineering.
Very interesting. I joined KCCA on 1st November 2011. And before then, I was
for so much. CEO of whatever. They give so much.
This is the reason why you are actually on the bench.
Because of my credibility. Thank you so much. But now they attack you, they vilify you. And the goal is to weaken you financially. Is to weaken your honor. These are slanderers. So I'm glad that someone would stay up at night to ask and learn about me. And I pray that in the next 2 months, because I know many Ugandans who travel overseas, when they go there, one of the things, because the media has been so much, and Sam Kutesa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, has really not done a good job. He has dropped the ball on this issue. Why? So many of us are being accused of being gay killers, including me. You've just heard that person. Uganda is being accused that we kill gays, which actually is absolutely untrue. And because of this, it has affected our tourism. It affects people who go overseas to do work or study. It affects whenever you go to a conference. Hi, my name is Eddie Okiela. Where are you from? I'm from Uganda. Oh, you are the gay killers. And then you begin to describe. See, so one of the things that I've done is I've written a book, which should be coming out. I know that I keep saying the same thing, but the work of doing a book takes a long time, and I wish I could be supported. You know, many people who write on this subject, like Sylvia Tamale, she's supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation. There is money.
There is a very big brand, and as we go on, we will probably discuss the things we're trying to do to see that things change for the better.
Good. Sean, on the CEO bench, for everyone who is following, we're live on our YouTube studio where we actually stream from. So YouTube studio, for everybody asking for a link, is actually House of Talent Uganda.
Confident in themselves and what they are offering. I think that's the biggest problem. Like, women will easily settle for a less pay than men would.
Mona Onyeto Deke goes on to say, I think this is a comment, says, I didn't know that beauty products are taxed at 60%. Whoa.
They are. I pray that changes soon, but they are.
So with that challenge of 60%,
setting up the company, you're doing tours all across the world. You know, a personal account is great, but how these things are taxed becomes important for your business later on. As soon as you cross that threshold of 50 million a year, you know, you're now in
the interest become more because shares.
Yes.
It's the CEO bench on a Friday morning or Friday afternoon right here in Kampala. Straight from Kampala to the rest of the world is when we bring you the CEOs on the CEO bench. Today, we have an executive director of a women and children organization in Uganda, 30 years in operation and still counting. Frances Birungi Odong. We are yet to know who is Odong, who is Birungi in that mix, where does she come from? And we're going to welcome back to the show, first of all. A toast to the coffee break, and we have to toast to the CEO bench right there. And Frances, before we went for break, we're having a very interesting conversation. You've talked about many things, and I want to bring some people on the show. If you're following online, we would like to say thank you very much for being a part of the CEO bench. And I have a couple of questions for you. And so please share your kisses and disses here. If we're doing well, give us the kiss. If we're doing bad, diss us, we're okay. We like to receive feedback. And now is the time for you to send as many questions as possible to Frances to be able to answer them. And I want to start with somebody here called Queenie Jill. Said, go auntie, super proud and inspired. So this must be one of your people. Yes, and yes. Then of course I have Kutui Stella Rose saying that the organization's ability to sustain itself beyond the donor funding is also okay. Wow, and key. Yeah. And she goes on to say also the ability of a leader to mentor and continually build the capacity of itself, of its staff, to be an all-round person capable of responding to emerging new trends at work, but also outside work is key. So basically these are some of the comments coming for you, Frances. And I have another one here coming from Frank Zaga, is saying, I am proud of you, my ED. I think these are your staff. Actually, when I joined Ukobak in 2018, I was not interviewed by a panel, rather I was given support, and now I'm a good mediator in land matters. Okay, so we can test some of your leadership abilities and the transformation. All right, Kutui has said, great work, Frances Birungi. And Diva Mukasa says, thank you very much. And if you have another question, I want to see some questions. These are kisses. Are there some questions? Do you have some questions for her and you wanted to answer? We're going to go into it right away. Frances, welcome back to the show. We want to go straight to this part of the show, which is transformation. And I can see that some people are giving you props already on that. Frances, this program is relevant for people already working. People in existing organizations, establishing their own organization or preparing to enter the workplace. It's not always easy for many people, and that's why we bring some of you who are already in that space, doing it by action, not just by talking, and then to share. And then having an organization, of course, an organizational context like you've talked about, to be able to offer, great learning or space or services to people is a good experience for us to have. And we would want to know from you, there is a very strong shrinking space, going down. Civil society organization is going down. The space in Uganda remains very small. And the biggest threat to the NGO, especially those in sensitive sector of human rights, as well as governance and land issues, seems to be quite a very difficult space. We've seen many of them arrested, and the land cases remain to be some of the very key areas. Your organization is focusing in many of these areas, and I've heard you talk about the key program areas that you're working on. We want to know from you, in some cases the police has besieged some of these offices and organizations of NGOs such as yours, arrested some of them. What are your advice to fellow leaders in civil society organizations, particularly those who find themselves in a space with police or in a running battle with police or with authority? In your submission earlier on, you said that one of the things you do, you must work in line with the national plan. What would be your advice to some of these people who find themselves in this space? And by the way, does it mean that they fall out of line with government, or they are still in line with government? What happened?
Okay, I think for me, I do not believe that these civil society organizations that are you know, have fallen victim, that they are working outside the line of government. You know, as civil society organization, our mandate is actually beyond just the national priorities. It also goes to the global priorities.